Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, we're going to be making this three-part gift caddy, which was inspired by a toiletry bag, which I saw on Pinterest. You can see I have a simple thread and hole punch closure on the top, but you can adapt this to any closure system you wish, and you could add handles onto the top to make it more of a gift bag style. The top pulls apart like so. We have two boxes either side, and these pull back to reveal a box at the bottom. The size of the base box is 6 inches by 4 inches by 2 inches high, and the boxes which sit on top are 2 inches wide and 4 inches high. So let me show you how I put the project together. We'll start with the angled box element, which we'll make two of. And for each triangular box, you'll need one piece which is 8.5 by 6, one piece which is 4 by 6, and two pieces which are 4.5 by 2.5. We'll start with the largest piece, 8.5 by 6. Along the 8.5-inch side, score at 4.5 and 8. Rotate so the 1/2-inch tab is at the top, and down to the 1/2-inch score line only, score at 1 inch, 2 inches, 4 inches and 5 inches. Fold and burnish along the score lines. Take your scissors, and we're going to cut up each of the verticals within the 1/2-inch section to the full horizontal. And what we're doing is creating these two closure tabs. I'm going to cut to the right hand side of the score line up to the horizontal and move along and cut to the left hand side of the score line, move along and cut to the right hand side of the score line and to the left hand side of the last score line. So we've split our piece into these sections. We now want to remove the bottom, the middle and the top sections only. Flip that one out of the way, remove the middle section like so, flip the next one out of the way and then remove the top section. So these are our closure tabs. Now ordinarily I would round off the corner of these, but I can't fit them in my corner punch, so I'm going to round the corners off by hand, but that's just a personal preference. We're going to put that to one side. The second piece of cardstock is 6 by 4. And along the 4-inch side, score at 1/2 and 2.5. Fold and burnish. Take your scissors and cut a wedge from the ends within the 1/2-inch glue tab. We're now going to cut the slots within this section here into which the tabs are going to fit. And my recommendation is that you now add your DSP to this section. You can add it later and I will tell you where the last point you can add it is, but it is easier if you add it now. What you want to make sure when you add the DSP, this is the glue tab which is going to adhere to the back panel. This is the base, so your cardstock is going to sit this way up. So if you're using directional paper, it's facing upwards in this direction. Once your DSP is dried, I'm going to use my scoreboard to help me and line my ruler up with the 1-inch mark down the left hand side and make sure it's sitting on the 1-inch mark down the right hand side so the ruler is level. Put a pencil mark just to the left of the 1-inch mark and just to the right of the 2-inch mark, just to the left of the 4-inch mark and just to the right of the 5-inch mark. Now you can, of course, if you think you'll find it easier, run your pencil line across between the marks that you've made. And these pencil lines indicate where the slots are going to be for the tabs. If I lay my second piece on top, you can see that the pencil lines are well within the outside edges of where the tabs are. I'll just use my craft knife and ruler and I'm going to create the slot for the tab. I'll start with one side on one side of the pencil line, rotate the cardstock and add another cut line to the other side of the pencil line. This is just means that I'm going to get a slot rather than just a cut line. So there's my two cut slots. We can now go ahead and add glue to the long glue tab and adhere these two pieces together. I'm going to use my quick grab glue, get that lined up and make sure that's sitting nice and flush and square on the second piece. And I can see that if I fold my piece into shape, my tabs are in the right place and fit in the slots. Whilst that's drying, we'll create the sides. And for the sides, we have two pieces which are 4.5 by 2.5. And we want to create a left side and a right side. And you'll also need to be cautious if you're using patterned paper where it's patterned one side and plain the other. We'll start with the left hand side. If you're using patterned paper, this will be patterned side up. And along the 2.5 inch side, score at 2 inches. And along the 4.5 inch side, score at 4 inches. We're then going to create a diagonal score line from the top of the score line down to the end of this score line at the bottom. I'm going to use my scoreboard because I have a track marked. I'm lining the top edge of the score line in with the marked track, rotating the piece so that the bottom end score line is lined up and score a line. Of course, you can use a metal ruler and stylus, whatever you have for this. And then either using your scissors or a trimmer, I'm going to cut approximately 1/2 inch from the diagonal score line to create a glue tab. I don't need this to be exactly 1/2 inch, but I want to create enough for a glue tab. For the right hand end, this will be pattern side down, if that's what you're using. And on this piece, we'll score at 1/2 inch along the 2.5 inch side, rotate and score at 4 inches. And again, we're now going to add a score line in from the top of the score line down to the bottom right hand side. I'm going to follow the same process and again cut away approximately 1/2 inch from the score line to create a glue tab. So we've got a left and a right hand end. Fold and burnish along all of the score lines on both pieces. If you have your pieces in this orientation, so your angles are to the outside, start by cutting away the small intersecting square in the corner. Take a wedge from this small glue tab, rotate and take a wedge from either ends of this glue tab, and then rotate and take a wedge from the end of the diagonal. And then repeat that on the second piece. So that's our two end pieces. If you lay your pieces out in this orientation, your slots will be at the bottom. We'll add glue to this small glue tab. The angles will be at the top. I'm going to use my quick grab glue again and sit this into the base section. Pull up the front section and the back section just to make sure that your side panel is sitting in place neatly. Flip the piece over, add glue to the long diagonals, pull that side round and adhere that into place. Make sure it's sitting lined up with the edge and repeat the process at the other end. Go in and burnish down those tabs. So that's looking nice and neat. We're now going to stick this front panel onto the front here. So now is really your last chance to add your DSP. So at least then you can tip the piece up and cut through the slots from the card through to the cardstock. I'm going to stick this piece into place, flip this up and just hold that together. You might want to fold the top flap back and go in and burnish that down just so that that moves freely. And now I can get to the inside and just burnish that down with my fingers. So this is our top box and we'll have two of those which will sit side by side. We'll now make the base box and you will have one piece which is 11 by 8 and two pieces which are 6 by 3. We'll start with the largest piece. Along the 11-inch side, score at half, 2.5, 8.5 and 10.5, and along the 8-inch side score at 2 and 6. In the half-inch tab along the top score at 4 inches down to the half-inch score line. Rotate the piece 180 degrees and repeat at the other end, so 4 down to the first score line. And then for the two smaller pieces, the 6 by 3 inch pieces, along the 3-inch side, score at half and 2.5. We'll work on the largest piece first. Fold and burnish along all of the score lines. And with the piece in a portrait orientation, cut up each of the verticals to the first horizontal. Rotate, remove the bottom right hand section, rotate the piece round and repeat at the other end of that glue tab and remove that outer section. This looks like this. So this split is the slots that the lids for the base box are going to fit into. Rotate and do the same at the other end. And we now want to create our corner glue tabs. The piece is in a landscape orientation. Cut up the first vertical to the horizontal at both ends. And take a wedge from the sides of these corner glue tabs. Rotate the piece and repeat on the other side. Add glue to your corner tabs, pull round the tab, pull up the side and create your corners of your box. Follow that process on all 4 corners. Whilst that's drying, we'll work on the lid section. Fold and burnish along each of the score lines. On one of the long glue tabs, take a wedge from the ends. And on the opposite glue tab, you can shape this, leave it straight or round it off. But this is going to be the flap which is going to slot down in the middle of the box. Add glue to the glue tab. I'm going to slot this in the back. You might find that you need to take some off of these tabs. If you flip the tabs out of the way and get the lid section secured in place first, I've got the score line just above the top of the edge of the box. Burnish that into place. Pinch the lid backwards just so that that's got some flexibility and fold the tab back in and make sure they sit inside. And I can just see that I need to trim the slightest element off the end of those tabs just so that that sits in the box nicely and doesn't hit the lid. Push those two down, they now fit nicely inside. The lid will come over and that should slot down in the middle like so. Now you may find that you will also need to cut some from the inner edge of the tabs. if it's a bit snug because you've got another lid to fit in there. But I'm happy with that one. And now I'm going to follow the same process for the other lid. So that's our base box. So we've now got our three elements, and those two boxes are going to sit on the top like so. And we want some way of attaching the two pieces onto the base box and creating a hinge. I'll show you the method I used to create the box at the beginning, but obviously you can change this up depending on the look that you want to create. You may want to have handles, you may want to have Velcro dots closing yours, you may want to have a flap. The opportunities in relation to putting this box together are endless. I'm going to use my DSP as a hinge and decoration at the same time. This is 180 GSM from the Crafter's Companion 12 Days of Christmas paper pad. I've cut this to 5 7/8 of an inch by 10 inches, and I've cut it to 10 inches because that puts the design in the place where I want it. I've scored at 1 inch and at 5.5 inches. So this is going to give me a 1 inch section at the top for my holes and my thread. I'll start by sitting the top of the base box on the 5.5 inch score line and gently fold round the bottom edge of the box. It doesn't need to be exact. This is just to give me an indicator as to where the glue needs to go. I'll use my construction glue again and just get this piece stuck onto the side of the box base first. Now, if you decided, for instance, that you want your top section and your bottom section to have different DSP, you could, for instance, cut a hinge out of your base cardstock, maybe have it 2 inches wide, score it at 1 inch, and it runs 1 inch down into the box section and 1 inch down into the top box section, and then add your DSP. So how this hinge mechanism goes together will potentially depend on how you want to decorate your box. Now that's tacked in place, I will flip the box open and just burnish down and make sure that glue is everywhere it needs to be. Flip the box over and just run my score tool along the bottom edge to start to get this piece working around the corner. I'm confident this side is in place. Flip the box over and now I can add glue to this section, which is going to be on the bottom of the box. Burnish that down. I'm now going to do exactly the same on the other side. Once this side has completely dry, I will then add the two angled side boxes onto the top. I want to make sure that this section here in particular along this seam is dry, because if anywhere is going to pull away from the box when these two pieces flip back, it's going to be along this edge here. So I'll let that dry, and in the meantime I'll continue decorating the rest of the box. I've got the majority of my boxes decorated. I've sat my triangles on top and I've added glue to the biggest section, and I'm going to pull that around, keeping the triangle sections sitting next to each other, making sure they're lined up, and burnish that into place. Do the same for the other side, and you can see that's sitting on there quite nicely, really, considering it's two handmade boxes. Now, you want to make sure that you haven't had any glue seep down, so gently pull the two top boxes apart and make sure there's no glue along the hinge sections. I'm going to push those two back together and just clip that with a couple of bulldog clips whilst that fully dries. I'm quite happy with that, and I can now get on with the last pieces of decoration. Here's my finished decorated box. As you saw at the beginning, I've used a simple thread and hole punch mechanism as closure. I've added DSP onto all of the outer sides and on all of the sides in the middle. I didn't feel the need to add anything to the inside of any of the boxes. And overall, I think the box has a nice profile and it's a good size. So there we have the finished project. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.